Well, Joe, this is a priority for President Trump and indeed the whole administration. I have a personal stake in this. The two very close friends lost children to this terrible scourge. Hundreds of thousands of Americans die every year. And I think that we saw here in Geneva that the Chinese are now serious about assisting the U.S. in stopping the flow of precursor drugs, because the Chinese brought their trade delegation, led by the vice premier, but they also brought a deputy minister for security who was their fentanyl expert. We brought someone from our national security staff, and they had a very long and in-depth sidebar about how our two countries could work together.
It is the Martha Zoller Show, and that's the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, going on with MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, okay? They're transparent. They're out there asking every question. But it means we know a heck of a lot more about what's going on, which I think makes some of us nervous. So we got a text message in at 770-535-2911. Good morning. What is the percentage of Democrats, Republicans, and liberals in America? Like a lot of Americans, I strongly believe God sent Trump to guide America through these difficult times. I think you meant liberals, Republicans, and independents. So the number is, or Democrats, Republicans, and independents. It is 27% Democrats, and this is from Pew Research and Gallup, which is, left-leaning, but so you'd think they'd build that number up. 27% Democrats, 38% Republicans, and 35% identify as independents. I'm willing to bet a lot of those independents used to be Democrats, and they just haven't gotten to where they can call themselves Republicans yet. So that's where that number is. And then Martha, the biography Witness to Hope is all about Pope John Paul II. Watch it on Amazon Prime. What courage to live and persevere through the takeover of Poland and communism. His story is inspiring. It is inspiring. I think like any people, the last probably 10 years of his reign, 7 to 10 years, he was very ill. And that was at the real height of the revelations about the scandal in the Catholic Church over pedophilia. And a lot of money was paid out. And that's part of the reason why they have some money problems today. Now, I think one of the challenges are that there's pedophilia that was going on, but it's also just homosexual behavior. When you get to be, you are, a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boy that's having a relationship with a priest, that's more homosexual behavior than it is pedophilia, but I don't want to split hairs on that. And it's not okay, and the church has stood up against it, and they have finally, in the beginning, they tried to do what compassionate people do, is believe that there was a cure for this, and what they would do is just send the priest to a sanitarium in Arizona or wherever was close by, and then get him some treatment of some kind, and then put him back in another church after he was supposedly cured. But if you are talking about people that have gone into the priesthood so that they can hide from their homosexuality or something like that, which there was a faction of that involved in this, there were problems that happened in the Catholic Church that could have been avoided. But I think that if we're going to look at this 50 years from now and look back at it, I think that initially the Catholic Church tried to be compassionate with their priests instead of thinking about the young people, and that was a huge mistake. And they tried to, quote, rehabilitate these priests instead of addressing the real reason why it happened. And then they realized that they couldn't do that, and that these men had to be kicked out of the church. And that for a period of time, they had a real shortage of priests, to the point where what was going on parallelly, I don't know if that's a word, but on the parallel, was in the Episcopal Church, they were becoming more liberal, and they had appointed an openly homosexual bishop, Eugene Robinson. And what's interesting about that is there was a priest here at the Episcopal Church here that got defrocked and kicked out of the church because he was having an affair with his secretary who was a female. So, you're not supposed to cheat on your spouse. I mean, that's kind of a basic rule for if you're going to be a priest or a minister. And he was kicked out because he cheated on his spouse with a woman. Eugene Robinson basically did the same thing. He cheated on his wife with a man. They ended up getting divorced, and yet he got elevated to bishop. I think a lot of people did not like the hypocrisy of that. A lot of people didn't like the hypocrisy of that. Cheating on your spouse is cheating on your spouse. It doesn't matter who you're cheating with. You have agreed in the vows that you take to forsake all others, and that means all others, not just ones you're attracted to. Okay? So I think there's a real hard issue that has to be dealt with in all of these churches from their history. But by all accounts, beginning with Pope Benedict and then going to Pope Francis and now Pope Leo XIV, I think they've gotten a handle on it. And what I've heard is that the Catholic Church is flourishing. It is flourishing. People are coming back to the church. Young people are coming back to the church. And we're seeing this movement. I've been waiting for the Fourth Great Awakening. Okay? We are seeing this movement of young people. This is what's going to bring people back. Young people coming back to church and revitalizing these churches. The millennials wanted the church to fit them. So they wanted the church to change to their cultural mores of the world in order for them to go to the church. And some of the churches did that. Okay? But we're coming out of that phase. And, I don't know what's going to happen to the millennials. I think they're going to have a lot of problems as they get older. And if you're a child of a millennial, you're going to be spending a lot of time taking care of your parents. Okay, I'll just tell you that. There's a lot of them that are going to be messed up because they did not have firm rules to live by. Maybe they had them, but they rejected them. And there's a whole bunch of those folks that are having no kids or only one kid. Now, I think we're going to see that change. As these younger people come back into the church, I think you're going to start to see the birth rate go up. I think you're going to start to see people better. And if we can systematically change the direction of where this economy is going and get the fraud and corruption like $100 billion being thrown out the door in the last 70 days of the Biden administration, if we can stop that kind of stuff, then people are going to feel good about their government the way they did in the 80s and 90s, and they're going to get married, they're going to have children, because here's the number one thing. If you want to have a better life than your parents, you can do three things, and it's a very small three things. You need to at least finish high school. College is fine, but at least finish high school. You need to put off having children until you're at least 20, and you need to be married when you have those children. Because giving a child that structure is what allows him or her to be successful. So if you do all of those things, you will be in good shape, and you will be able to have the kind of life that you want. It's the Martha Zoller Show. I'll be back tomorrow. You're always here, always local.